"Pretend you kiss me for 10 minutes, said the CEO. What the single dad janitor did stunned all. The boardroom was suffocating. The air felt heavy with tension, the kind that sticks to your skin and makes every heartbeat sound like a drum in your ears. Elena Hart, the ruthless CEO of one of the city's most powerful corporations, sat at the head of the long polished table. The glass walls reflected her sharp figure, a woman in her early 30s, dressed in a navy power suit, her dark hair tied back neatly, her icy eyes scanning the room like a queen watching her subjects tremble. Yet beneath her poised exterior, Elena's chest was burning. She was cornered, and the wolves were circling. Investors, board members, even so-called allies, all waiting for her to fail, all hungry for the tiniest crack in her armor. She needed a miracle, or at least, the illusion of one. And then, in that impossible moment, her gaze fell on him. The janitor, a man in his late 30s, wearing a faded uniform, pushing a mop down the hallway just outside the glass doors. His name was Daniel. She remembered it vaguely. He was the quiet single dad who kept his head down, the one who worked double shifts to provide for his little daughter, the one people rarely noticed. But now, for reasons she couldn't explain, she noticed him. And what she asked him to do next would change both of their lives forever. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the strange ways destiny brings people together, please take a moment right now to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps us continue sharing emotional stories that touch hearts all over the world. Elena stood abruptly, the room startled by her sudden movement. She opened the boardroom door and walked straight toward Daniel. He froze, unsure why the CEO herself was approaching him, her heels clicking like gunshots against the marble floor. Without hesitation, her voice low but sharp, she whispered, "Pretend you kiss me." For 10 minutes, his eyes widened in disbelief. The mop clattered against the floor. He thought he had misheard, but her commanding stare left no room for doubt. Inside, Elena's mind raced. If she appeared vulnerable, the board would tear her apart. But if she appeared deeply desired, loved, even, then she could shift the power, reminding everyone she was more than just their pawn. Daniel's heart pounded. He was a janitor, a man who barely made enough to survive, a widowed father raising a 6-year-old girl who asked every night if mommy was watching from heaven. He never imagined his life would cross with a woman like Elena. And yet, here she was, asking him for something that sounded absurd, impossible, and dangerous. But then he saw it. Behind her icy eyes was desperation, a crack in the armor, a silent plea she couldn't voice. Against every instinct telling him to walk away, Daniel took a breath and stepped into her storm. The moment their lips touched, silence fell. Gasps rippled through the room behind the glass, the board members frozen in shock. Elena's eyes fluttered shut, as if sealing herself in an illusion she needed to believe. Daniel held her carefully, respectfully, not like a man stealing a kiss but like someone carrying something fragile and priceless. 10 minutes felt like an eternity, yet in that eternity, something shifted. For Elena, it was the first time in years she felt something other than steel and fire. It was warmth, safety, a strange tenderness she had long buried. For Daniel, it was the surreal collision of two worlds, the untouchable CEO and the invisible janitor, bound together in a moment that no one could explain. When they finally parted, the room was no longer filled with whispers of her downfall but stunned silence. Elena's enemies found themselves at a loss, their plans derailed. She stood taller, her hand still lingering near Daniel's as though it grounded her. He returned to his mop without a word, his face flushed but his dignity intact. The boardroom meeting ended with Elena untouchable, her position secured, for now. But for her, the real war had just begun. In the days that followed, Elena couldn't shake him from her thoughts. She replayed the moment endlessly, not the kiss itself, but the way he held her, the sincerity in his eyes, the absence of greed or calculation. In her world, everyone wanted something from her. But Daniel, he had nothing to gain and yet gave her something real. Slowly, Her walls began to crack. Daniel, on the other hand, tried to bury the memory. His daughter, Lily, needed stability. He couldn't afford distractions, let alone dreams that belonged to another world. Yet when Elena began seeking him out, first under the guise of checking on the staff, then with excuses too transparent to believe, he found himself drawn into her orbit. She asked about Lily. She listened when he spoke about grief, about scraping by, about love lost and never regained. And for the first time since his wife's passing, Daniel felt seen. The scandal, of course, eventually broke. Photos leaked. Rumors spread like wildfire. The CEO and the janitor, headlines sneered. Investors panicked, the public mocked, and enemies sharpened their knives. Elena's empire shook, but instead of crumbling, she made a choice no one expected. She stood in front of cameras and said, "Yes, I kissed him. Not out of weakness, but because for one moment in my life, I wanted something true." The city erupted. Some ridiculed her, others admired her honesty, but the bravest thing she did was stand by Daniel, not as a CEO shielding herself, but as a woman ready to fight for a man who had reminded her of her own humanity. It wasn't easy. Daniel faced humiliation, whispers in the hallways, and nights where he wondered if he was ruining his daughter's chance at a normal life. Elena faced betrayal from those she once trusted, battles that left her weary. Yet together, they began to carve out something extraordinary. Lily adored Elena, clinging to her like the mother she lost. Elena, who had once built walls so high no one could climb them, found herself kneeling on a kitchen floor helping Lily with crayons and bedtime stories. The city eventually grew tired of the scandal. But those who had once laughed now watched something they hadn't expected, love blooming in a place no one thought possible. A CEO and a janitor, two broken souls healing each other. Their story wasn't polished, it wasn't perfect, but it was real. If this story touched your heart, if it made you believe that love can bloom in the most unexpected places and that second chances are worth fighting for, please take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe to Royal Stories. Your support helps us bring more powerful, emotional journeys like this one to life. And before we end, here's a special request. Comment below with the words, "Love deserves a second chance," if you believe that every heart, no matter how broken, deserves healing.